Welcome to another edition of TechFlix. This session will answer the question, what is a desktop virtualization boot storm? Let's start off with a quick definition and we'll go from there. So, what is a boot storm? Well, it's a degradation of service that occurs when a significant number of end users boot up or power on their desktops within a very narrow window of time, ultimately overwhelming the network with data requests. To really understand boot storms, let's start with a little background information. When you create a VDI environment, you typically go through a storage sizing exercise based on anticipated capacity and performance requirements. The exercise aims to capture the steady state of virtual machine operation so that you can be sure you have the hardware in place to support it. But let's be honest, steady state in a desktop environment really isn't the norm. So let's talk about a boot storm. Within a VDI environment, it's not uncommon for a large number of virtual desktops to boot up or power on either at the same time or just within moments of one another. And if hundreds or thousands of virtual desktops all power on at or near the same time, this can cause a huge drag on network throughput, storage I/O, and host server performance, ultimately slowing down the virtual desktops themselves. Let's take a closer look at boot storms and do some back-of-the-napkin math. Think about a mid-range laptop computer designed to boot up under Windows 7. It might deliver 5 IOPS under regular steady-state use, which is a common industry average. But during boot up, antivirus scans, logins, and application launches, this number can easily increase to, say, 50 IOPS. Now, multiply that by 100 or 1,000 VDI users, and the result is a huge load on the network. This means that a conventional VDI solution would typically require 5 to 10 times the number of disk spindles and bus bandwidth. If your NAS or SAN storage device has enough spindles to provide a solid 5,000 IOPS, that should be enough to throw at your inbound I/O requests, right? Well, if you're running 100 VMs in that environment, that gives you the 50 IOPS per VM that you need for steady state. But when you grow that environment to, say, 500 VMs, you've just decreased your IOPS per VM down to 10. And what happens when a subset of those VMs need to be rebooted simultaneously, and they lay claim to that I/O in order to boot up in a timely manner? That's no longer steady state. Instead, what you end up with is having a host of machines battling for I/O, causing delayed boot times, and taking I/O away from other VMs who are now being starved below the normal I/O requirements. So how do we solve the boot storm challenge? Well, there's a couple ways to do that. One way to prevent boot storms is to stagger the powering on of virtual machines. This works well for server virtualization environments where VMs are static in nature, but that's not the case with desktop VMs. So instead, organizations may choose to throw more spindles and bus bandwidth at the problem in the hopes of mitigating performance hits during boot storms. But adding additional storage to a NAS or SAN device will also further increase the cost of a VDI deployment. And since storage is already a huge cost component to a VDI environment, increasing that cost isn't a good idea. Likewise, you could add solid-state disk systems, SSDs, or third-party cache-based solid-state storage to handle the high levels of I/O requests. But again, these drives aren't cheap. Finally, technologies like VirtualBridge's Storage Optimizer with cache I/O can also address high-use issues such as boot storms and large application launches directly without the need for additional hardware or software, by offloading most of these IOPS from the NAS or SAN. Boot storms have led to the abandonment of plenty of VDI projects over the years, which is unfortunate. It's typically the result of a poorly designed or under-designed VDI implementation. So choosing the right VDI solution, implementing the right architecture, and starting with the right hardware technology in the end will allow you to take on those dreaded boot storm issues head on. Thank you.